Welcome back to another episode of the SRU podcast with me and my guy Will Royal. How you doing today, Will?
Can't complain. It's a very cold Thursday here in the South. Or I guess Friday when this episode comes out. And really, there wasn't too much of college basketball going on. We did have the Big 12 SEC Challenge a couple of days ago. And we had my beloved Alabama break a school record on Tuesday, and we're going to talk about that later on.
No,
But
I'm
first
talking about
off,
Saturday.
yeah, Big 12 won the challenge. They won 7-3. Both our teams lost. No one had fun.
No, I was actually pissed about our game just because the refs just decided to call every touch type foul or every small foul on us, and we actually had the game like won. Like we first half we were up by I think like 13 or something. Then second half comes on, we're playing good. Then end of the game is when they just started calling terrible calls. Second half, Baylor were getting every foul call. Arkansas didn't really get a foul call in the second half towards the end where teams are just fouling just to manage the clock. But it was pretty bad on our end just because that would have been a huge resume game to for the March Madness tournament, and it would actually help Arkansas become ranked again. But I guess we just have to grind it out in SEC play for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and kind of similar with us. We didn't necessarily look that good going into this, like going into Norman. Let me pull up the stats real quick. Um, I mean, Brandon Miller, him as dropping like 20 points a game. He only had 11. Our leading scorer was Rylan Griffin, who barely comes off the bench. He had 15 points. But Oklahoma, they had Grant Sherfield had 30 on us. He dropped
Yeah.
that much on us. And then you also had Jalen Hill, who dropped 26 on us. On top of that, you had Tanner Groves, their big man, just bully us in the paint, 14 points, 12 rebounds. So overall, it wasn't a good game, but we still are undefeated in the SEC. We have LSU coming up this weekend, and then Florida, who's on a hot streak. We'll talk about them in a second. And then probably our hardest stretch going to Auburn and then to Tennessee.
Yeah,
So it'll be interesting to see where we are, after this kind of stretch of catching our breath. And, we'll go from there.
yeah. Arkansas does have a pretty hard schedule coming up. This Saturday we have South Carolina, and after that we have Kentucky, Mississippi State, then Texas A&M again, then Florida. Hopefully, we can get Nick Smith back before the Kentucky game. It could happen. We really hadn't gotten many updates on his injury. I know they talked about it on the Texas A&M game, which we will get to later in the podcast, but he says he's about 80, 90%, and he hopes to be back pretty soon. I would love to have him back because we are actually playing good chemistry wise. We're finding how we need to play. And I'm gonna give props to Devo Davis. The last few games, he has been great, especially this Baylor game. He locked down one of their best players in Flagler. And I'm pretty sure he had a season low in points, Flagler did, while Devo Davis was guarding him. Flagler, let me see how much he had. He had 5 points, 1 for 11. Will he's Devo Davis is probably going to make All SEC defensive player. He also could win Defensive Player of the Year for the SEC because he's been playing this that great. But any other games you want to talk about for this Big 12 SEC challenge?
Um, there were a lot of upsets in this. A lot of non-ranked teams upsetting ranked teams. You had Auburn losing to West Virginia. You had Missouri just absolutely embarrassing Iowa State. You had Mississippi State taking TCU to overtime and winning. And then probably some of the more notable games, you had Kansas coming back, beating Kentucky. Jalen Wilson having a really good game. He had 22 in that game in Lexington. And then the other big one was Tennessee taking care of business against Texas, where hold on if this one's still load. Yeah. I'm gonna butcher this name, but Olivier Nakamhua. Nakamhua.
Let
I'm
me-
sure I actually butchered that. Of Tennessee, yeah, he had 27,
Yeah,
and Zakai Ziegler had 22.
I was watching that game, and if you follow me on Twitter, you would have saw that I said that watching that game was a eyesore. Both of those colors of oranges were terrible. You have the
Mhm.
burnt orange from Texas, then you have that I wouldn't say neon orange from Tennessee, but it's like a really bright orange.
That
Then
pure orange is
yeah,
what us Alabama fans call it.
yeah, but then you see the court and you just see checkerboard on the both baselines, and it hurt my eyes watching that game. It was pretty. I didn't like watching that game at all. But Rick Barnes came back to Texas. I don't know if this is his first time since he left playing against Texas. I'm not sure, but he did come back and be his old school, where he's a legend technically, for Texas. But he's having a pretty good year, other than a loss that we will get into later. But yeah, Tennessee is looking pretty good. Alabama is looking like the cream of the crop for SEC this year, and yeah, but yeah, let's not talk about that. But this I'm pretty sure this is the first time the Big 12 won this challenge in a while or ever.
Some, something like that. I don't have the exact standings, but yeah, they won seven of the 10 games, which is impressive, especially considering how high caliber the SC is this year.
Yeah, and they won a lot of the games. Some of them were close. A lot of them were pretty big margin L's, like the Alabama game, the Oklahoma State game, and I guess you could say the Florida Kansas State game. There was some of the games were like not even close, but
Yeah, and I've been seeing a lot of talk of possibly Ole Miss moving on from Kermit Davis after this year. I don't blame them.
yeah, maybe he should stay off the court, like coach from the coach's box, and not be down there on the baseline at the 3-point line while Arkansas is trying to play.
Yeah, okay. Um, Moving on from that and focusing on the Big 12, there was a really good game the other night. Unfortunately, not on ESPN because they wanted this to be on Plus because they
Yeah,
would rather,
which is weird.
yeah, would rather see Duke, Wake Forest on that channel. Unranked Wake and unranked Duke, by the way.
Yeah,
But Kansas State came back and took back the game they originally lost to early in the season. And let's just talk for a second about Jaden Wilson because we were talking about this before we started recording, and he's making a good push for the Naismith, along with the likes of Brandon Miller, Drew Timmy,
Zach
um,
Edey.
Zach Edey, obviously.
Kendrick Davis is up there. I saw I actually saw a graphic. I think it was the Arkansas game, and they put up the graphic for who's the top 20 players for Naismith, and there's a lot of good players on there. Uh, well, Zach Edey is probably the front runner at the moment. He's just having a great year, and
Yeah,
Purdue is constantly in the top 10, top five, mostly, but yeah, top 10. But yeah, this Kansas State game was kind of not really a blowout, but it was a big win for Kansas after the last game, which Kansas lost in overtime because the likes of what's his name? Keontae George. Am I mistaken? What's his name? Yeah, Keontae Johnson. After his comeback from last year, when didn't he collapse on the court when he was at Florida?
uh,
It was something like that. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think he did collapse on the floor.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, Jaden Wilson had a great game. The the difference between last game and this game is Desi Sills, the transfer from Arkansas State, which he also transferred from Arkansas to Arkansas State. He only had a 7-point game coming off the bench, and that really hurt Kansas State. I like their team. I feel like their team is a team that could go far in the tournament, Kansas State, and Kansas is looking like a team that could potentially win back-to-back championships. This year, I don't know, but I wouldn't doubt Kansas being out of it for sure.
Yeah, because right now they're sitting right at the 7th seed, and I think that's what it's.
They're ranked number 8 at the moment.
Yeah, Kansas 8-7, Kansas 8. They're gonna move up now because of this win. Yeah, I definitely see them being like at lowest a 3 seed come this tournament because you never know what's gonna happen in the conference tournament.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think Kansas has what it takes to at least win the Big 12 and get lock up like a high seed and make a good tournament run. Because remember, they're a defending champion. They don't have the same exact team as last year, but they're still a good team with the likes of Jane Wilson, Grady Dick, just to name a few. But you can make a lot of good cases for Kansas.
yeah. Let's go to this next game. A huge upset in the SEC. Tennessee is really disappointing the SEC when it comes to having top tier teams dominating the SEC, and they just lost to Florida 67-54. And what's going on in Tennessee, man? They just beat a good team in Texas, loses to an unranked team, really a mid team, some would say, in Florida. Um, is it just the rivalry between the two teams, or is it just like they just called Tennessee on a bad day, Will? Like what's going on up there, man, in Knoxville?
Yeah, I think it's you don't expect every team to go undefeated. There's never really been an undefeated team in college basketball. At least in this modern era, UCLA in the 70s, that's different.
Well, you can say Kentucky back when what is is that when Devin Brooks and Carl Anthony Towns were there? Didn't they go undefeated and lose in like
They lost in the Final Four.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the D Book, Cat, Harrison twins, that team. But Tennessee, they were the number 2 team in the country. They moved up after Alabama's loss, but that's going to change now because they actually dropped a conference game to Florida. And just looking at this, Colin Castleton of Florida had 20 points on them. Tennessee's highest scorer was Zakai Ziegler. He only had 15, but still kind of a poor showing from Tennessee just because everyone was hyping him up this year. And so,
Yeah, it's this game really the bench played a pretty decent role. Um, Florida outscoring Tennessee bench wise 11-7. And looking at the stats that Florida shot the ball way a lot better than Tennessee. Florida shooting 43% from the field to Tennessee's 27.9. Even though Tennessee is more of a defensive team, if you're going to have a bad game shooting, your defense has to step up and force bad shots for Florida. And it did not happen this game. Tennessee, I'm pretty sure they play them again later this season. So I feel like they could get a revenge. Let's go to this next game, Will. A game you're proud to talk about.
school record 57-point win over Vandy, 101-44 on Tuesday. And Bama, this was our first game back, by the way, with Namari Burnett, because he's now back from injury.
No, he played I thought he played Oklahoma game. I swear he played Oklahoma game.
I'm almost positive he didn't. Let me double check. This
I
was.
swear he played in that Oklahoma game.
I don't think he did.
I remember because
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying that's the only game I watched. So I didn't even watch this last game. Yeah, he did play. He didn't do anything.
He didn't record any stats, but he played.
Well, yeah, he got 4 fouls. That was the stats that he recorded.
Yeah. But he did come back in great fashion on Tuesday. But really, the star of the show, Brandon Miller.
Yeah.
He had 22 and 8 rebounds. Charles Bediako had a good game, 12. No, no, 10-3. Yeah, Namari Burnett had 16 points in his, I guess you want to call this first real game back because he's actually scoring.
Yeah.
But this game was practically over 5 minutes in. We were already up 20 on Vandy. And
yeah, both of y'all played everyone on y'all team. Like literally everyone on both teams played. I'm looking at the box score and it's like it looks like a football box score, honestly.
Yeah, you had Alex Cottrell, who's like the token wide player, come in the last 3 minutes, and they wanted him to hit a three because everyone was hitting three. We had 19 threes last night, or
That's
not last
great.
night.
That's literally that's Nate Oates' game right there. Shooting hella threes and just
I
making them.
think I think we attempted over 40 threes in that game, and we hit 19.
Y'all had 41 threes. That's crazy. And y'all hit 46.3% from three. That is absolutely insane. Shooting,
59 overall from the field.
yeah, almost 60 from the field is crazy. Y'all just had the perfect Alabama game. Probably won't happen again. I highly doubt y'all have a game like that again, but hey, Alabama's looking good. And let's talk about speaking of Nate Oates and him having great 3-point shooting teams. Alabama is deciding to extend him until what 2029, 2030.
2029, that's the latest. It hasn't been, officially announced yet, but from what I've heard, they're essentially giving him a blank check
Yeah.
because
I
he's
saw 4 million a year, I think.
possibly. He's definitely turned this program around. Because my freshman year we were bang average under
So y'all
Avery.
were bad. Avery Johnson didn't do a bad job just because it's Alabama and it's basketball. So honestly, he didn't do bad. He had Colin Sexton there. What
Yeah.
he was only there for like a few years anyways.
He was there for, let me think, because Anthony Grant, the coach before us, I think he left in 2013, so he was there for about 6-ish years.
Yeah.
Only made the tournament once, and that was under Colin Sexton's year. But my last memory I have of the Avery Johnson era was us in the NIT because we missed out on the tournament. We were the number one seed, and we lost at home to Norfolk State. That was essentially the final straw that caused us to fire Avery. He's now an analyst for CBS.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Avery Johnson in who knows how long. It's been forever, I feel like.
Ironically, he was on the call for us when we lost to Notre Dame in the tournament last year.
Who would have thought? Maybe it
Uh,
was just the bad juju of Avery Johnson being on a call. That's why y'all lost.
Possibly, but I do think this is the right decision that Bama's making with extending. Last year was kind of an off year because the year before we were so good, and now we kind of went back to being middle of the pack, and now we're probably end up being a top 3 team next week.
Yeah, actually, y'all might be two, just because all the teams that lost. If y'all win this weekend, y'all most likely will be two. Just
It's
because,
LSU. I'm not that concerned.
yeah, their one win is against us, and I hate to say that. That's literally, I hate that being their one win in the SEC against us, and it's because a huge missed call at the end of the game that really, I just don't want to talk about it right now. Like, just thinking about the game pisses me off. Just thinking about the refs in Arkansas in general just pisses me off. I feel like in every sport the refs messes up, except for like baseball. Can't really mess up a baseball game other than becoming Angel Hernandez behind the plate.
Yeah. But like I was saying, we're also in the possibility of building a new basketball arena because Coleman's kind of outdated.
Yeah, it's pretty small. It reminds me of Barnhill Arena in Arkansas.
It's honestly not that small. I think it's like 14,000 seats.
Yeah, but you got to think about it. Alabama's a huge school in Alabama. It's a state school, and like a lot of people go to Alabama for its sports. So upgrading what Brian Denny's is probably the biggest. It's top 5 biggest stadiums in college. Um,
It's not even top 5.
is it not?
I think it's still top 10, but in terms of SEC, I think we're 4th.
Really?
Yeah, I think it goes A&M, LSU, Tennessee, then us.
That's actually surprising. I thought y'all were way. I guess it's just because y'all attendance is always so high. You always have like y'all overpack the stadium.
Sometimes. I mean, this year not really, but then again, Bill O'Brien, who knows?
Not, hey, Alabama don't have true fans like Big Game Boomer would say.
Hold on, where is it's in the other room, but if I had it, I'd light my lighter for him.
Yeah. Hey, he got the last laugh Saturday. Will.
Still posted the wrong sport.
Yeah, this man really posted Nick Saban as the as the loss between Oklahoma and Alabama. That's idiot behavior right there.
He a clown. But that's really all I have to say about Bama. Really looking forward to the rest of the season, especially down the stretch when we have, back to back at Auburn, at Tennessee, end the year at A&M. We still have Auburn, we still have Florida coming up. We have another round with trying to think of who else we have. I think we have South Carolina left, but I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about this Arkansas Texas A&M game. Arkansas does give Texas A&M their second SEC loss, which is very surprising that Texas A&M has been playing this well in the SEC. This is probably the best Arkansas game that I've seen since the San Diego State game in Maui and the Louisville game in Maui. Arkansas played good offensively and defensively. Scored 50% from the field, 33.3% from the 3-point line. Devo Davis had him a game with him and Ricky Council both scoring 19 points. And happy birthday to the Mitchell twins who led the teams in blocks. Mikael Mitchell, I don't know how many blocks did he have? He had 7, and Makai Mitchell had 3 blocks. Well, what a birthday present between them, having a great defensive games like that. Mikael Mitchell had 13 rebounds with 9 points. And leading us for assists was my guy Anthony Black, probably one of the better point guards in the SEC all around, scoring wise and assist wise. What you can't really argue with a 6'7" frame that he has. Between Texas A&M, they had a pretty good game, but for what's his name, Henry Coleman III, who had a double-double with 18 points and 15 rebounds, but it wasn't enough to stop Arkansas's defense and offense in that game, which we won 81-70. Well, I don't know how much of that game you watched.
I watched a little bit of it, just because it was the same time as Bama. But like you said, Arkansas is kind of on that resurgence. Looking forward to a rematch later this season. I think it's on the 25th. So who knows?
Yeah, well, it's February. February must like it's like every time ever since we had must every February, that's when we start our huge run and win like majority of our games and lose like 1 or 2. I don't know what it is, but I wish our January was a little bit better because we went on a huge losing streak in January. We wouldn't have to worry about going on a huge winning streak. Probably the toughest part of our schedule is coming up later because I'm pretty sure we play Kentucky twice. We play Tennessee. We still hadn't played Florida, and we have to play Texas A&M and Alabama again, which is pretty tough teams, especially a team I didn't even mention in Mississippi State, who started the season off really well. So that could be a trap game for us. And honestly, I could see Arkansas being a 7-8 seed going into the tournament just because all the stuff we need to make a higher seed that we've been the past 2 years. So it's getting a little, a little nerve wracking in Fayetteville right now. Will.
Yeah, but like you said, it is February, so might as well be, because we're now just under 5 weeks until the official bracket comes out. Conference tournaments begin at the end of the month, so we're just going to take this time to look through the main 6 conferences. Just see how the standings are going. I have the ACC pulled up right here, and the biggest surprise, I think, I think they were ranked in preseason, but Clemson is in control of the ACC.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Yeah, right now they're 10-2 in conference, with Virginia right behind them at 9-2, and then you have the likes of UNC at 4, Miami at 5, Duke at 6, Wake at 8, And then you go to the bottom, and then you have like teams you thought were going to be good. Like Florida State is 11th in the ACC, Notre Dame's 13th, and then Louisville, who actually won a game yesterday.
Yeah.
They
Who
beat
the,
Georgia Tech.
I'm saying who they beat Georgia Tech.
They're still 3-19, but
But yeah,
they're 1-10 conference. They're ahead of Georgia
Georgia
Tech.
Tech is 8-14, which is crazy.
They're
Man,
1-11 in the conference.
yeah,
Or Josh Pastner.
yeah. Who would have thought Pitt would be so high also at number 3,
Yeah, I know.
9-3 in the conference?
Then we move on
Miami,
to
yeah, Miami's actually looking pretty good too. I'm pretty sure they lost one of their last few games that they've had.
I think they lost to Duke not that long ago.
Yeah, what was that? Saturday they played. They lost to Pitt actually.
Yeah. Big Ten I have next. Purdue, no surprise. They're 11-1. They're one loss to Rutgers, who's good. They're tied for second with Illinois in the Big Ten, and then you have the likes of Northwestern, surprisingly good. They're 6-4. It's in fourth place, Indiana, Maryland. And then you kind of have more of like a disappointment. You have Michigan at 9th, and then Ohio State is 12th in the
Yeah.
Big Ten.
Yeah, Ohio State looked good at the beginning of the year. They're only 14-8, which is not a bad record. You would like to be.
No, they're 11-10. You're looking at the wrong team.
Oh yeah, I am. Oh crap, I'm looking at Penn State. My bad. 11-11 actually, which is
Because at
terrible.
one point they were ranked.
Yeah, they were. Maybe they could get in the bubble and be one of the first four teams in or out.
They would need a miracle to get in at this point, I think.
Yeah, but Michigan, I would say that kind of disappointing. Juwan Howard, you thought he would have a better year after what happened last year of them literally robbing teams of the tournament. Like Texas A&M, they definitely deserve to be in it last year after the SEC tournament they had. But Michigan, they're 12-10, which doesn't look good at all. You have the Indiana Hoosiers, who's ranked number 21, but they're 6-5 in the conference, which is crazy. It's crazy seeing ranked teams so low in their conference standings. Will, don't you think? But it's a huge like tie right there. Everyone's like tied for fourth. What you
Yeah.
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams tied for 6 teams tied for fourth, which is it's a really close race right now in the Big Ten. Let's go to the Big 12. A conference that I'm really excited to talk about because they actually look really good with 6 ranked teams. All of them ranked in the top 15, which is crazy. Who you really don't see conference ranked so high at as a for 6 teams
Yeah.
unless it's like football and you're watching the SEC. The Big 12 does look like one of the probably the best conference in the nation at the moment.
Yeah, no. You have Texas in first place, probably right behind with the 2 Kansas schools, and then TCU, Iowa State, and Baylor. Those are the 6 teams, and I think everyone else kind of expected.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, Oklahoma, they're actually kind of having a disappointing year for how good of a team that they have. They have a pretty decent caliber team. Them making the tournament, they would need to upset these bigger schools in their conference. I actually like that team pretty decently amount just because their coach is an ex Arkansas college coach. He didn't coach at Arkansas. I'm pretty sure he coached at Euler, which is where I'm from, Little Rock. But they have a pretty solid team. They did just beat Alabama, who's ranked in the top 5. So you Oklahoma could make a run. I can see them upsetting a few teams. I'm pretty sure TCU and Kansas play soon, and hopefully I can attempt to go to that game. I feel like that'd be a good game. I like the way TCU plays. I want to say I watched a couple of TCU basketball games. but they usually play at the same time that Arkansas plays, so I really kind of miss that. What's the next one?
Big East.
Oh yeah, let's go to Big East.
So Xavier kind of surprised me. They bring back Sean Miller, and it's essentially been a revival for them because they're sitting in first place, followed by Marquette. They're both 10-2. Then you have the likes of Providence and Creighton, who we all thought Creighton was kind of a disappointment to start the season, but they're still 14-8, still have a good shot to make it.
They're knocking at the door to being ranked for sure.
UConn kind of let us down once conference play started. They started off being 11-0, and now they're 6-6 in conference now. And then everyone else, I think it was mostly just those 4 or 5, along with Seton Hall.
Seton Hall. I know we don't like Seton Hall after what happened in that Memphis game.
Yeah, but I mean, their coach is Shaheen Holloway, the former St. Peter's coach, so you can't be too mad.
Yeah, he's
But
having a pretty good season there. Since we're at the Big East, is Georgetown, is their coach still Patrick Ewing?
I believe so.
How? They've been trash for like the past few years. Like Georgetown has not been the Georgetown that history has shown us with
I
all the
think,
great
yeah,
big men that came through there.
the last time I remember them being good, they got upset in the first round by Florida Gulf Coast in the tournament. After that, they've been bad.
Yeah, I thought when they got Mac McClung, they would you know, be higher uh, a team that would actually compete in the March Madness, but he ended up transferring to Texas Tech, and Georgia's just been the pit of, I guess, the Big East since then. Let's talk about Marquette. Marquette has been they're a sneaky team. Like I haven't paid attention to them at all. I forgot even they were even in the Big East, honestly.
Yeah, they've had a certain revival under Shaka Smart after he left Texas a couple years ago.
Well, it
And
was at VCU before Marquette
yeah,
went.
he took VCU to the Final Four.
Yeah, which is
And then
crazy.
and
Shout out
now
to our guy Kadema, who parents went to VCU.
no, they went to Virginia.
I thought they went to VCU.
Virginia.
We'll ask him after the podcast. I swear his parents went to VCU. Maybe I'm tripping.
Um yeah, and you just look at Marquette now, they're tied in first place with Xavier. You know,
Who who's they've also had a revival. Xavier has been bad the past few years, or
yeah,
not.
ever since Chris Mack left to take the Louisville job, I think this was 2018, 2019, they kind of fell off because under Mack they were a number 1 seed in the tournament. And then they've kind of been lackluster. They now bring in, I think it was Travis Steele was his name. And then this year they bring in Sean Miller after everything that fell through at Arizona. So it's good to see Xavier kind of back to where they are.
Yeah. Let's go to
The Pac-12, and
yeah.
right now it's essentially the battle of the two LA schools. You have UCLA sitting first at 8-2 in the conference, and then right after that is Arizona and USC with 3 losses each. Oregon sitting fifth, kind of in a lackluster year, and then I mean I don't think really anyone watches much of Stanford or Cal. Like I tried watching that game over the weekend, and it was like the halfway through the game, and there was like maybe 30 combined points between the two.
Jesus Christ, that's bad. Yeah, Pac-12, they definitely have the blue bloods, like a few blue bloods in that conference. The UCLA USC game, I think was it last week, a couple weeks ago, was pretty good. And the Arizona, I think what they lost, yeah, they lost UCLA. No, they beat UCLA 2 weeks ago, I think, or last weekend, and that was a pretty good game. Let's talk about UCLA. They do have a pretty good team, honestly. Um, what's your boy Amari Bailey, who played with Sierra Canyon and Bronny last year? He's having a pretty decent year. I'm not sure how good he's of a year he's having, but Tiger Campbell's playing pretty well. What UCLA? They were in the Final Four. What 2 years ago? or last year.
Yeah, 2021 when they
Yeah.
were because they beat Bama in the Sweet 16.
Yeah. So UCLA, they they've been having a pretty good year all year. I think they've been ranked top 10 most of the year, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, let's not leave out USC Trojans. They're sitting outside the rankings with the 15-6 um, record and no top three in their division or in their conference. So I could see probably 4 to 5 teams in the Pac-12 making the tournament. If you
Yeah,
agree or not, I don't know. All right,
yeah.
and let's go
Then
to our last conference,
last but not least, the SEC,
the SEC.
and
Just means more will.
especially if you're Alabama.
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of Alabama, they are sitting at number one, um, who undefeated in the SEC, 19-3 overall record. Most likely will be top three team when the new rankings come out next, no, what Sunday. Then you have Texas A&M, who's really surprised a lot of people when it came to conference play because before conference play they're all right, they're all right team who just, and like we just said, Texas A&M took their second loss of the season in the conference to Arkansas. Then you have Tennessee and Auburn sitting right behind them, Kentucky at 5, tied with Florida. Missouri is right behind them, and Arkansas is behind Missouri. And last place team isn't LSU. They're tied with last with Ole Miss and South Carolina. South Carolina has a pretty good freshman in Gigi Jackson who flipped from his commitment to North Carolina after reclassifying and becoming a freshman this year to go to South Carolina. Was that a great decision? Honestly, I don't know. Well, I don't know how you would feel about that. Both teams, well, North Carolina is trying to creep its way back into being a ranked team. I just saw when we were going over the ACC, but South Carolina isn't a basketball school. Honestly, they're not even a football school. They're more of a baseball school, if you ask me. But hey, they are at the bottom of the SEC at the moment. Georgia is having a pretty mediocre year, or not mediocre, mid-year. Like they're not bad. Georgia usually is probably at the bottom of basketball most years in the SEC. Georgia and like Ole Miss for the past few years. Well, how do you feel about the SEC standings at the moment, other than Alabama being number one?
Um, there are some surprises in this. Like I didn't expect really A&M to be sitting fourth. Going into the season, I knew it was going to basically come down to mostly the likes of Tennessee versus Auburn, and then Arkansas is third place. I didn't really, I mean, as an Alabama fan, I didn't really think much of the season. I knew Brandon Miller was going to be good. I didn't expect him to be this good.
Yeah,
Now have us sitting as a top two team possibly by the end of next week, and on the opposite end of the spectrum, yes, there are 2-7 right now in the conference, but Mississippi State had a really good start, especially under first year coach Chris Jans. And then you have the bottom three teams sitting at one win each. And credit to LSU and South Carolina, they have first year coaches there. Ole Miss, Kermit Davis has been around for a minute. He's getting fired. I think most like I would be surprised if he isn't fired after the season and they move on to someone like FAU's coach, because they do love bringing that in like they did with Lane. They love FAU.
yeah,
But that's really all I have to say about in terms of conference plays. A lot can change between now and then, especially conference tournaments starting in 3 weeks. I'm looking forward to
just
that.
crazy. That blows my mind that it's that close. Like basketball season goes by so fast just because most people don't start watching until conference play and football season's over with, which is crazy.
Last thing I want to talk about, and I sent it to you yesterday, is this situation between Iowa and Illinois.
A little Miami scam going on over there.
So it started off with Illinois student section named the Orange Crush. They put out a lengthy note on Twitter saying, we have a tradition of going to one away game as a student collective of 2,000. We bought the tickets and then they refunded us the tickets because they didn't explain why. And they said put down essentially saying we put down a huge deposit for buses of we basically took a fifth of our whole budget for this trip and it got canceled. Then Iowa came forward and said they actually pose as the Illinois Boys and Girls Club as opposed to a whole separate organization. And we're going to use that money for the Cedar Rapids Boys and Girls Club, which I think is a good thing. Kind of exposing Illinois like that, and
Yeah,
it's not a good look.
it's definitely not a good look at all. Posing as a boys and girls club to get discount tickets is crazy to me. I know that y'all have like a tradition of like going deep into a rival conference school and just showing up trying to throw them off their game, but like scamming someone like that is crazy. Like scamming in general is crazy, but that scam is ridiculous, man. Like you have to be kind of embarrassed that you actually did that. That's pretty bad. Why didn't you just buy the tickets like regular people? I know the prices are going to be like terrible just because they don't really sell student tickets for rival schools. Because you don't
Yeah,
really expect people to do that. Honestly, it's a great thing that happened, but at the same time, that's just a crazy story in general. I feel like this year there's been a lot of crazy stories, NIL wise, stuff like this happening, crazy quotes, and like stuff outside of basketball happening. I know you can be a part of that too, Will, just because what happened in Tuscaloosa. But it's just
yeah,
been honestly, it's been a great year for college basketball just because it's wide open. There's really not a favorite to win it all this year. The number one team has been bouncing all over the place week to week. I'm just in love with college basketball at the moment, man. I can't really get enough of it, and it sucks that it's I would say halfway over, almost over
yeah.
conference play
I mean,
wise.
it's more than halfway. I'd say it's like regular season 2/3 done.
I'm just talking about conference wise, like it's just about
Yeah,
halfway over. But yeah,
but
March is coming up. Too bad February is a short month because we basically miss out on a half a week of college basketball. So basically one or two more games of college basketball because it's how short February is. But hey, can't I love college basketball, man. It's probably my favorite college sport. It's between that and football,
yeah,
but mostly basketball because I don't feel the pain every year when my team plays horribly. But I also can't wait until college baseball. I've been gearing up for that. Towards the end of this month, I should be at this huge showdown in the Ranger Stadium. I forgot their stadium name
Globe
for
Life.
some reason. Oh yeah, Globe Life Stadium. I went there earlier late last year for the Army Air Force game, but I can't wait for that. Me and JP will most likely be going together. I'm pretty sure his parents are going also. But yeah, cool.
That's all I have this week. Um,
Yeah. Thank y'all for
yeah,
another good episode. Make sure you tune in next week. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and turn your post notifications on. And go Hogs.
roll tide.
Deuces.
Deuces.